This podcast is all about getting divorced without losing your mind, where Corey Shapiro, a seasoned New York City divorce attorney, shares valuable insights from his book, Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind. He'll teach you how to be more creative and less reactive in your divorce. He also dives into discussions with experts and thought leaders on navigating divorce intelligently and calmly.
Welcome to Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind, the book and podcast to help you become more creative and less reactive in your divorce. And if you're new to this podcast and you're stuck in a difficult situation, we are doing video 4 of a 5-video series on the divorce budget. So the first video was on an overview of the divorce budget. Then we talked about the emotion budget. Then we talked about the money budget. Today we're focusing on the energy budget. And then next time we are going to end with the time budget. You know, your watch, looking at the time. And I hope you do have a watch, even if it's one of those Apple Watches. Although a lot of people don't like Apple Watches like me because the battery only lasts a day. And speaking of, batteries, energy, we need to last more than a day. A lot of these divorces could last years. And I want you to think of yourself, unfortunately, if you're in a difficult divorce, a high conflict divorce, that you're a fish in like the Hudson, which is not, it's probably pretty toxic in there for a fish of all the places they can be. But that's where we are. And our goal is to try to get out of that water environment, go into a healthier place. And it's just all about conserving energy. All right, we start with our quote. We love to bring wisdom. We have our friendly owls. Say hello to our owls. We should probably name these owls. I mean, they're nameless. So I will come up with a name for them so we can refer to them and personify the wisdom that they impart on us. And just like the owls are giving us wisdom, so do we get wisdom from these great quotes. Let's start off with a quote from Jim Luhr, who really has a soft spot in my heart because I know him for so long since I started tennis and I read his books, and he's moving more to performance psychology, not just in sports. His quote is, "Energy, not time, is our most precious resource." Yeah, divorce is an energy suck. We need to know how to conserve our energy, how to build energy. So let's focus on that. And let me just give you a little overview of what we're going to focus on. Really 3 things today. We're going to talk about a hope scale. A hope scale? Yes, a hope scale. One side is hope and the other side is anxiety. Anxiety. Who wants to be on that side? It's so unpleasant to be on the anxiety scale. But we find ourselves being anxious when we're in these difficult panic situations like divorce. And that's what this podcast is for. That's what my book is for, to help you think a little bit more creatively so you don't have to be so panicky. The second thing we're going to talk about is building physical energy, because it takes, there's a mind-body connection, and we have to perform at a high level sometimes in a divorce, and we have to make difficult decisions. So we want to keep our body in tip-top shape. And then we're going to talk about building emotional energy. If we're all stuck in anxiety and depression, and it's so easy to go there, but we need to ramp up the other side of things. And it's a much better place to be than being, in a very negative framework. The idea of the hope scale is we want to think of ourselves as race car drivers. And I understand when you're a race car driver and you have all these turns, we're focusing on the turn. The turn, we're not focusing on slamming into the wall. And a lot of times when we get anxious, we are focusing things on outside of our control. And there's so many things in a divorce, that are outside our control. But can you focus on things that are inside your control? And what are they? Well, I'm sure with your attorney, you probably have a roadmap, or you should have a roadmap of next steps to take that you need to take in your divorce. So for example, if you're filling out a financial statement form, and you're working on your expense section, you're working on your asset section, and you're working on your liabilities section, we're focusing on that. We're not focusing on maybe a year from now, what's going to happen, or on bigger issues of your divorce. We're just focusing on the next steps. That gives us hope that if we do things right, maybe things won't be as bad. A lot of our fears are unrealized. And hey, I'm just like you, where I can go panicky, I can be anxious, I can think so negative, doomsday thought, but how is that productive? Yeah, I'm asking you, how is that productive? No, it's not productive. You're right, it's not productive, but it's so easy to go there. So easy to go there. So I have a question on this, more like a frequently asked question is, how can I stay in this hopeful state if I'm so scared? I'm so unsure of the future. This is my life. How can I do that? And I believe the answer is that a lot of this is going to think of it almost like a flashlight when maybe in a dark room where and it's pitch black and you need to just see, right ahead of you. So you get that flashlight, but the flashlight only brightens a little area of the room so you can know where you're walking around. And that's sort of what we're doing here. We're narrowing our focus and focusing on what we can control to stay more positive. And that's how you do it. And it's not necessarily easy to do. You have to build this practice, but you can do it. You can do it. I trust you. You can do it. All right, so let's move on to the next concept, which is physical energy. And why is this so important? We're not running a marathon, Corey, talking about marathons, but actually don't have to run this marathon. So why do we have to worry about physical energy? Don't just we sit down a lot in court, maybe stand up when the judge comes. What's going on here? Well, as I said, there's a mind-body connection, and we have to keep our body in good shape so we can perform at our best. So let me go through some things that I have really worked on. I've worked on this myself, to be practicing as a divorce attorney for over 20 years in New York City. And how can I bring my best to help my clients through difficult times? How can I deal with the adversity sometimes that my adversaries or opponents give me? How do I deal with a difficult or tough judge? How do I do all that? And it's not easy, especially in the beginning. It's overwhelming. And so I really have thought about all these stuff to really try to level up my ability to perform at my best. And that's what I would want from you. If you're going through a divorce, you have to level it up. Sort of like when school starts and you're on the football team, they have training camp. So think of this as a little training camp to get you going. But don't worry, it's not as bad as this football training camp. No 2-a-days, I promise. All right, so first of all, we're going to focus on sleep. See, we start small, we start easy. Sleep is pretty good. Well, if we're anxious, probably hard to sleep. Right? Probably hard to sleep. But what I want you to try to do is at least an hour before bed, stop using your phone, stop using your devices. Maybe you can use an e-reader. That's fine. If you like to read before bed. But no more of this, social media, texting, emailing, looking up things. Just give your mind a rest. And ideally, you want to get about 7 hours of sleep a night. Don't cut it short, maybe one night a week. But most of the times, your body needs that, if not more. Also, you want to try to go to bed similar times and get up similar times. Get into a structure. And that's really how you're going to really amplify your sleeping. Now, if you're the type of person that wakes up in the middle of the night and you just can't go back to bed, we'll get to that. But what I would love you to do is just stay in bed. I would stay in bed, and I'm going to have something for you to do. I'm going to have an exercise for you to do. So tune in. We'll get there. But what I don't want you to do is email your attorney or think about your case in the sense of all the issues that needs to be done. I want you to think of other things that are going to relax you so you can fall back to bed. All right. The other thing I want to focus on is exercise. Exercise is an antidote to depression. It's an antidote to depression. Not everyone, if you have very severe depression, obviously exercise is not going to really work for You might need other things to help you, but it's a great start to help with depression and to be fully engaged. So what do I want you to do when you're exercising? Well, I wanted you to do at least 3, hopefully 6, but at least 3 of cardio. So if you do no exercise and you're just on the couch at night and you go for walks, that's step 1. So that's great. Walking is better than on the couch. But if you have been walking and I want you to do something that lifts up your heart rate. It could be rowing. Love rowing. It's a full body workout. It could be on the bike, stationary. It could be a dance class like Zumba. Take your pick. And I don't want it to be high intensity. I want it to be medium intensity. Just a little elevated cardio. And also I would love to have a couple of days a week, maybe 2, if not 3, of some just strength training, even if it's just 10 minutes. Peloton has a great app. They have these 10-minute, arm and core workouts. Start with that. Easy to do. I think you'd be in a much different situation. You do that a couple times a week. I think that's great. So again, doesn't have to be high intensity, but do something that exercises your body. And even just some mobility could be a good start too. All right, let's move on to nutrition. This one is the bedrock because what we put in is so important to our bodies. We understand what we put into our cars is important. So what we put into our body, and not only our food, but what we put into our minds. But we're talking about nutrition, but it's so important what we are focusing on and what we're putting into our body. So what I want you to think of is trying to eliminate or reduce your dependency, if you have it, on caffeine, on alcohol. That's going to help you sleep better. When I reduced or practically eliminated my caffeine intake, my sleep went up. And one thing I didn't talk about on sleep, you can get these watches or devices that actually give you a sleep score. And it's really cool. You're gamifying sleep. And I've noticed a big increase since I've reduced my caffeine intake, reduced or eliminated my alcohol intake. And you could have non-alcoholic beers or mocktails once a week. So to give you that feeling that you're having alcohol, but it's just not healthy for you. Also, you want to have much more fruits and veggies. Think of fruits and veggies as your main dish, and the side dishes are the meat. So like if you go to a restaurant, usually you see the main dishes are like the pizza, the pasta, the steak. Oh yes, I love Italian restaurants. Actually going out to an Italian restaurant tonight. But I noticed that all of the side dishes are either vegetables or potatoes. And what I'm thinking is the side dishes should be the meat. Hard to change, but that's what we are geared for. Think of this. I was watching this show I think it was on Peacock, about bears who are building up, these hungry bears building up for the winter. And their diet consists of 90% fruits and veggies. And I believe they're about 5 times as strong as us. So if they can eat fruits and veggies 90% of the time, then we should at least try to get up to there. I mean, maybe 60, 70% range to start. I think you will see a major difference. You could still have your fish, you could still have your meat, but just less. That's all I'm trying to get at. Okay, the next thing is I want to talk about emotional energy. And here you're dealing with really your mind. Your mind is wonderful, but it also needs some help from you. So one thing it needs is maybe some direction. And one way to do that is journaling. Now, if you journal, just a warning, please keep your journal safe and secure. Yes, people steal journals, especially in divorce. They look at it. It could be very private. So if you have a journal, keep it safe and secure. I'm thinking of journaling more as a brain dump, to stream of conscious. Just get it out of your mind so you can think of better things. That's what I want. I want you to take out the bad, leave the good. And that's what I think journaling does. It's sort of like going to a therapist, but it's free therapy. Also, I would love you to do a vision casting. And that was my hint for people who get up in the middle of the night and you have a set time you're supposed to get up. Let's say you go to bed at 10 and you get up at 6, but you wake up at 3:30. So you have an hour and a half. In that hour and a half, I would love you to stay in bed and then just have that time to vision cast. I've been doing this vision casting from the time, if I wake up a little early, as opposed to just reading in the morning or getting up and getting my day going, because I want to get up the same time each day. And usually I just get up, but sometimes I get up a little early. And that's a great opportunity to vision cast. So think about in the future, as detailed as possible, like you're watching a video and you're manifesting your reality, what you want, your wishes. That doesn't mean it's going to come true, but it's going to make it easier. So for example, if you are thinking about giving a public speech, and public speaking is scary for a lot of people. If you can just vision yourself giving that speech and how you're going to feel and thinking about all the crowd and all the emotions and run that, dress rehearsal, and I put it in quotes, in your mind, when you actually do it, you're going to feel so much better because you visioned, you created it, you manifested it. And the last thing I want to talk about on emotional energy is building a mind. I'm coming up this lingo to try to trick you a little bit, this mind building practice. Yes, we're talking about mind settling techniques. We're talking about meditation. It might be a loaded word for some, but meditation, the big M, helpful to become a little bit more mindful. And it really does build energy. And if you feel like just sitting there is not for you, you tried it, that's the whole practice. The whole practice is you sit there and just try it for 5 minutes, maybe even 3 minutes to start. And your mind's going to wander. It's going to go all over the place. It's like, well, I'm over here. And the whole point is we're going to bring it back. So you just notice your mind. Where is it going? And I come back. It's like, where is it going? And come back. That's the practice of concentration. And if that doesn't speak to you, and you're like, I'm not going to sit there even for 3 minutes and do this, then do some yoga. Yoga is a moving meditation. Do it without music and just do some, sun salutations, some flows. There's a lot of, just put in a yoga flow in Google or YouTube, and I'm sure you can get a 15-minute practice. Do that, at least 3 times a week. That's great too for building the mind. So let's just do a recap. We started this episode with a quote from Jim Loehr about how precious energy is, and we gave some ideas to energize your physical energy, to help you with your emotional energy. And the key here is divorce can be very toxic, and it can be a real big energy suck. And all these ideas are to help you conserve and grow your energy. It's energy management. That's the energy budget. And I hope it helps you in your divorce. So next episode, we're going to end this series on the divorce budget with time, the time budget. And let me just tell you right now, if you want a quick divorce, the only way to do that is if both people agree. But if you have one person who doesn't agree, it can last a long time. And that's really unfortunate. And if you're in a big metropolitan area, even if you agree to actually get divorced after you submit the papers to court, it could take over a year. Yeah, a year. You heard me right. This is on an uncontested divorce. So you're going to have to realize that this is going to take a lot of time. And if it's contested where you're, battling certain issues, it could take multiple years. And you have to think, is this really something I want to invest in? But it's better to know that now than later. All right. So listen, I thank you for tuning in to this podcast. I thank you for working on your divorce, not just in it. You're building your energy. You're building your tool set. You're getting more creative. You're getting less reactive. You're bringing more to the table. And why I'm doing this is to help you understand that there's choices you can make. Yes, you can make that can make a real big improvement in your divorce. And if you have no one else to talk to about your divorce strategy, you have me, you have this podcast, you have my book. You're not alone. So thank you for listening. Thank you for joining. Continue being more creative, less reactive in your divorce, and you too can get a divorce without losing your mind.
Thank you for tuning in to the Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind podcast. We would love to hear your feedback. Send Corey an email to feedback@gettingdivorced.org. And if you've read his book, please consider leaving an Amazon review. This podcast offers general information only. It cannot replace legal advice. If you need tailored advice, contact an attorney licensed to practice in your area.